In this video, I'm going to show you how to decorate this Mickey and Minnie cake. Hi, it's Karolyn. If you want to learn how to bake and decorate amazing cakes, then I would love for you to join me by hitting subscribe and the bell. If you want to get right into the video, there are chapters linked below. So I'm going to show you how to decorate this adorable Mickey and Minnie Mouse cake. And right now I have my cakes already baked, filled, iced, and they are in the refrigerator waiting to be decorated. And actually the bottom tier I covered in black marshmallow fondant. So I have videos showing you how I bake, fill, ice, make my icing, make my fondant, cover cakes in fondant. All of that will be linked in the description. And also any videos that I reference during this tutorial and all of the tools that I use will also be linked below. And before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that I am now available for personal one-on-one phone calls and Zoom calls. All of that information is linked in the description. So let's get started. I have a piece of non-slip pad underneath my cutting board so it doesn't slide around when I use it, an X-Acto knife, and a wet paper towel that I can keep wiping the blade on, a Dresden tool that is my favorite tool, and a little bit of water and a paintbrush. Now all of my fondant has this Gum-Tex powder, Tyler's powder, CMC powder. It's the same thing. You sprinkle a little bit in there, knead it together, roll it out, let it sit. It'll stiffen your fondant and make it so much easier to work with and cut when you have this mixed in. Now I printed out all the pictures that I want to use, the size that I want them to be, and I rolled the fondant out pretty thin. Again, it has that Tyler's powder in it, and I'm doing my trace, cut, and smooth method. So I'm just tracing the tan part, and do you see how I went behind the glove? So I'm kind of looking past the glove to see where the face is, and then I'm making sure that I do all the inner details as well. Peel it back, make sure you can see it, and then I want to take my Dresden tool and just deepen some of the lines. And now I have some white fondant and I'm tracing the eyeballs as well. I have this black marker. Everything that I use will be linked below, and I'm just coloring in the pupils. And I want to cut out the eye sockets, and I'm going to put the white pieces in there. Anytime I cut anything out of fondant, I'm going to smooth my cuts just so it doesn't look jagged. And perfect, that fits in that little eye socket. And same thing for the other one. And I want to cut the mouth out and smooth my cuts. Now I'm doing the same thing, so it's the same process. I got a little bit of red fondant and I traced the tongue on there, and I'm going to cut that out and smooth that. And now I can cut the entire face out. I do have a video showing you how I make a two-dimensional Mickey in further detail, and I will link that in the description. Now I want to do the shorts, so same thing. I'm just tracing them onto the red fondant. Make sure you get all that inner detail, and then cut it out and smooth my cuts. I'm not going to keep saying that, but every time I cut anything out of fondant, I'm going to smooth it. You might not see me do it every time, but I will. And now I'm doing the shoes as well. And I'm just making both of these shoes into one big piece. And after I trace, I like to deepen the details with my Dresden tool. Now let's do the same thing for the white pieces, the gloves and the little buttons on the shorts. And you can see all these pieces starting to come together. Now with the black piece, I have to look past where all these other decorations are and just try to find where the black is. So do you see I'm going past that glove and pretending like if I could just see the black part, what am I seeing, right? So this is the part that can get most confusing because you have to look past the picture and try to figure this out. This will make sense as we go along. And don't forget to trace the tail too. Now this is going to look a little weird, but just trust the process. I'm going to cut out this black piece. And don't forget to cut out the tail too and smooth your cuts. Now I have another piece of black fondant, and I'm going to lay that black piece of fondant on here and get a little bit of water underneath to stick it down. And now I want to piece this together. So I have the picture close for reference so I can make sure I'm putting everything in the right place, but I like to put it down and get it in the right position. There, I have the picture so I can make sure the shorts are right. And then I'll get water underneath it and stick it down. And again, use your tools to make sure the lines and the details are deepened. And same thing with the face. Do you see how I'm adjusting it? Because I want to make sure that it looks like the picture. If you don't put the pieces together like the picture, it's going to look a little off. Now I have some petal dust here. I have brown, orange, and black. And I like to get a little bit in the lid and then tap off the excess because this stuff transfers really good. So I have some really teeny paint brushes so I can get in these inner details. And I'm just looking at the picture and coloring it in like I'm putting makeup on, basically, according to the picture. So this tiny brush allows me to get into those fine details. And don't forget to give them a little eyeliner. And just dusting your pieces brings them to life. It just makes them look so much better. And now that I have the dust details on the face, I can put the other glove on. And when I color in the gloves and the shorts, I like to use the black petal dust. And again, all this stuff will be linked in the description. And don't forget to put the tail down. And I also want to cut out his nose as well. And I use a little, like a number 4 piping tip to cut a little white circle out and stick that on top. Now I'm using my X-Acto knife to get an even black border the entire way around the piece. I carefully peel away the excess and then smooth my cuts. And I'm going to realign that on top of the picture, and I don't want it to dry out, so I'm sticking it in a Ziploc bag. And let's do the same thing for Minnie. So I'm going to start with the face, tracing onto the tan fondant, and make sure that you get the inner details as well. And don't forget her eyelashes. And same thing, I'm going to use my Dresden tool to deepen the details and then cut out the eye sockets and the mouth. And I'm doing the same thing that I did for Mickey. So I'm tracing the eyeballs, tracing the gloves onto the white fondant. And like Mickey's shoes, the gloves are, I cut into one piece. It's just a little easier to work with that way. Color in the eyeballs with the edible marker and fill in the sockets. Now you don't see me smooth the cuts here, but I'm going to smooth the cuts after I cut it out. Let's do the same thing for her shoes and make sure that you get all the inner detail lines as well. And same thing for the bow. Are you guys getting bored? It's the same thing. Just trace it onto the fondant, deepen the details, cut it out, smooth your cuts. Now for this red dress, it's gonna look weird. I'm looking past the picture, like I said before, and trying to figure out where it would fit. So just trust the process. I'll show you how it comes together. And same thing with the black. Remember how I traced that weird black background on Mickey? This is the same thing. So I'm looking past the picture and just trying to find all the black details and then cut that out. So the arms, I did 2 individual pieces here. You'll see when it comes together what I mean. All right, now I have another thinner piece of black fondant and I'm doing the same thing, putting the pieces down, getting some water behind it once I have them in the correct position. And here's that weird dress. So I'm going to put all the pieces down to make sure that this fits and it's going to look right. So I have the picture close and I'm looking at the picture and just trying to piece it together. Okay, that looks good. So now let me remove some pieces and then get water underneath now that I have everything in the right spot. And I want to dust her. So I like to put the dust on before I put the gloves on because it allows me to reach parts of the face that are going to be covered by the gloves. And right now I was using some pink petal dust for her mouth, and now I'm putting the gloves on top. So you see, if I put the gloves on and then tried to dust it, I wouldn't be able to get to some of those parts. Now I'm just getting water behind the rest of the pieces to glue those down. And don't forget to color in the rest of Minnie and getting into those deeper details with the darker brown. And using black on the bow and the gloves like I did for Mickey. With her eyelashes, I don't think I showed it, but I colored in her eyelashes with an edible marker, just tracing the lines that I made on her face. And now I'm taking my X-Acto knife and cutting an even black border the entire way around. And then smooth those cuts. Realign her back on the picture and stick her in a bag so she doesn't dry out. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the number topper. So I have some thin red fondant and I'm just tracing the number 2. And all these pictures that I use will be linked below. Now I have some thicker black fondant. I rolled it out about 1/4 to 1/2 inch thick. That way I can get a skewer through it. You will see. So I just want to trace the whole black part onto the black fondant. And then I want to put that 2 on there and make sure that it fits and then get a little bit of water behind it. Now since this is a thicker piece of fondant, I'm making a shallow cut first. So I'm just sticking the tip of my X-Acto knife in there to create a line that I can use as a guide when I cut the rest of the fondant out. And then once I have that shallow line, I'm sticking the tip all the way down to the cutting board and cutting the whole thing out. And once you remove the fondant, it looks very messy. So I'm going to flip it over, use my fingers and my tools to smooth out all those jagged edges, and then flip it on the right side and smooth it from the front. Now I want to get a skewer in here. I'm going to twist it in. So I'm going to screw it in there. I can't stick it in the center. You'll be able to see it. So I'm doing it a little to the right and I'm screwing it in. I did wet the skewer, flip it over so I can make sure it's not popping out the front or the back, and let's set that aside. Now I'm rolling out all 4 colors that I'm using in this cake. This is not good for video purposes. I don't know where I got this, and I think this is really old, so you can skip this part. If anybody knows where this roller is, let me know, but it just adds a little bit of texture in there. I have this ribbon cutter and that will be linked below, and you can do different widths. And I have a cake box lid that I'm just going to put all these stripes on, and I'm just cutting a bunch of stripes out and then smoothing my cuts. You don't see me do that every time, but I do. And then I'm going to do a different width for the red and the black. So I cut the yellow and the white a little thinner, the red and the black a little thicker. And I'm just going to stick all of these on that cake box lid. Now I'm going to cut the bottom off of all the strips just so I have an even bottom. Now I want to stack the cake, so I just got this out of the fridge and I'm going to use my little handy ruler and measure my straws. And I am going to cut off that little mark that I made and stick the straws in the cake. Now I do have a stacking tutorial. I go into complete detail on how I stack cakes, and I will link that in the description. I'm going to get some buttercream down and wash my hands. My hands are always clean when I handle my cakes. And then stack the next tier on. Make sure it's level and repeat the process. Get the straws in that tier to support the weight of the upper tier. Get a little buttercream down, stack the other one on top, dowel the whole cake, fill that little hole with some buttercream icing. Now I have some piping gel. I'm going to stick these stripes on the cake. So make sure you hold it completely vertical. You don't want them to be on a slant. Then I have these angled scissors where I can just cut that top part off so it's even with the top of the cake. So I'm going to alternate the colors going around the cake. I'm starting in the back. So when I end in the back, if it doesn't match up, you won't really be able to tell. So I'm doing white, then red, then yellow, then black, and I'm repeating that color pattern the entire way around. Where it meets in the back, there's a tiny little space here that I have to fill in with a teeny strip of white fondant. So I just measured that out and filled in that space. I want to take a fondant smoother and just press those against the cake. And I want to roll out the borders. So I have some black fondant and I'm rolling it out really long and cut a strip with that ribbon cutter, get a little piping gel down and wrap that around the top tier. I'm going to do the same thing for the bottom tier. Where it meets in the back, cut a seam and just use my brush to remove the excess cornstarch. Now I'm getting Minnie out of the bag. And I want to flip her over and get some piping gel on the back. And put her wherever you want to put her. I want her to go on the middle tier and Mickey's going to go on the top tier. Same thing for Mickey, getting some piping gel on the back and place him down. And that looks good. Let's put that back in the fridge. Now I'm making the name, so I printed this out in the Waltograph font. I will link this font below, and I printed it out the size that I wanted it to be, and I'm doing the same thing. Trace it onto the fondant. When you're cutting out letters, you always want to cut the center pieces first. It's so much easier to do when it's still attached to the rest of the fondant. Smooth your cuts and then cut out all the letters. When I cut the letters out, I'm going to smooth my cuts and then realign it back on top of that picture so the letters are in the correct position. And I'm cutting some curlies. I do one line down and then a squiggly line on the left, a squiggly line on the right. If you know me, you know I'm addicted to curlies. Take one of the curlies, wrap it around a Dresden tool and set it aside. There is Tylo's powder mixed into this fondant, so the curlies are going to hold their shape. Then I'm cutting a bunch of different size polka dots in all of the colors. So I'm making curlies and polka dots in all 4 colors. Wonderful. Now I have an icing bag with a tip number 4 on it, and I'm just going to pipe all these little dots. So I'm looking at the picture, I'm trying to make sure that I get these dots even. And then whenever you pipe dots, do you see how the points are sticking up? You got to push in your points, people. That looks really weird. So I'm dipping a paintbrush in some water and gently just pressing down those points. Look how much better that looks once you do that. Now I have this mold. I will link this below, and I'm getting a little bit of shortening in the mold and getting some red fondant in there and use my hand to press it down, peel it away, and then I'm going to cut it out with an X-Acto knife. Smooth my cuts and get a little bit of water on the back and stick that down. Beautiful. Let's set this aside. Now I'm cutting some of the polka dots in half just because that's what I like to do, you will see. I'm measuring the name to make sure that I get the center of the names in the center of the cake. So I'm going to start with the end and stick that down in the center because that was the center. And then I'm going to build out to the right. And then start from the center and build to the left. This way, the name is going to be center on the cake. Getting a little bit of piping gel underneath, and I stuck some toothpicks on either side of the skewer so it doesn't twist when it's in the top of the cake. And I'm putting the polka dots down. Do you see how I like to put the halvesies at the top? I just think it looks good. I don't know. And then I put random polka dots everywhere. And I'm getting a little bit of piping gel underneath each of the curlies and sticking that down on the top, the middle, the bottom tier, and on the cake board. And there is the cake. So cute. So there you go. How adorable is this cake? I really hope I don't bore you guys with my technique because it's basically the same thing every time I decorate. I roll out the fondant, I print out what I want, I trace it, I cut it out, I smooth it, and I piece it together. It is such a simple technique. Once you get the hang of it, you can make anything. Now I want to show you the inside of this cake. This is 4-inch, 6-inch, and the bottom tier is a 1-layer 8-inch cake. So I have a video showing you how I mess around with different heights of tiers to get different sizes and like visual interest in my cakes, and that's going to be linked in the description. But the top tier is a 4-inch cake, and when I make 4-inch cakes, I bake them in 3-inch high pans. So I only do 2 layers, and I have a video showing you how I make small cakes, and that will be linked in the description. The 6-inch cake and the 8-inch cake are both baked in 2-inch high pans. The 6-inch is a 2-layer cake, and I torted it into 4 thinner layers. And then the 8-inch cake is only a 1-layer cake, torted into 2 thinner layers. So you can see by doing it this way, I get different heights and different, it just looks more interesting when the tiers are different heights. So again, that video will be linked below so you can learn how to do that. And this cake feeds about 30 people or so. So I think that's it. What new techniques did you learn in this video? I would love to know. Leave them in the comments below. Please like this video if you liked it, and if you are enjoying my tutorials, I would be so grateful if you could buy me a coffee. My link is pinned in the comments below. And you can keep in touch on socials and check out my website. Everything is listed in the description. And if you want to stick around, you can watch this video next and hit subscribe and the bell if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. And remember, it's cake, have fun. I will see you on the next one. Bye.